You mentioned a mismatch, and at least that was an experience that you had when you were on the telco side. And then now having sat on both sides of the table, why do you think that there is a mismatch and whose fault is it? Or is it that both sides need to sort of come to the table with a little bit better of an understanding and empathy of how things work and how each side of the table operates?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely both sides are responsible for, where things are. I think there isn't a strong understanding of what leverage means on the startup side. I used to get a lot of startups show up and just say, "Well, I've got a great product. If only you would just send a text message to your $23 million, I'll be the next Zuckerberg." But then they would not be open to any feedback or any sort of suggestions that said your product isn't what people will like. And then we just launch, and nothing would happen and everybody would get frustrated and say, "Well, the telco does this and the telco does that. The telco charges too much for revenue share," and so on and so forth. So when you have a product with no users and you show up and make demands on what you feel like you're supposed to earn, that's not a way to negotiate. So I would tell people, look, sign the contract. It's only 2 years. Right. And then at the end of 2 years, all you need to do is put me in a position where I have to adjust my commercials to respond to you. If you have traction, if you have a user base that's important to me that is generating recurring revenue, I will adjust. And I gave examples frequently of people that had, backed me into a corner. So I would invite startups to back me into said corner. But that, but that didn't necessarily happen. Now, on the other side, with the telcos, it's just flexibility, latitude, creating opportunities as opposed to beating fists on a table and saying, "I am the telco and you will do all that I say all the time." You know what I mean? So I think just being able to accommodate innovation is a challenge in companies that are very old. But again, this is not a challenge that's specific to just telcos. It's a challenge that is present in, companies that have a business model that has seen some success and companies that have a certain way to make money. Telcos sell things like voice, data, SMS. It's like one product that touches everybody in the base. So when you show up and you say, "Well, I want to release a game," and the game might make a ton of money from the startup's perspective, but it only touches 1% of the base. But then if you have 20 games, 10 or 15 music apps, then you start to talk about double digit penetration into the base. That's a completely different way for a telco to look at how to make money because they're used to just sort of one product, killer app, touches everybody. So I think just some accommodation of working with, siloed specialists that startups are, as opposed to mass market products, which is what the telco typically releases itself. There has to be that openness on both sides to be responsive to the realities or the operations of the respective businesses involved in the discussion. So yeah, both sides have a lot to have a lot to deal with and reconcile in order to have successful conversations.